I was like, okay, how do I make that interesting? And I hit upon the idea of doing a sitcom episode. When they get to their home base, they come in, and then I have a group knock on the door. And that group is here to say, hey, we want to talk to you about XYZ. And the moment they start that conversation, they bring them into the house, there's another knock on the door. And they have a little map of their house, and I made them put their minis on it. And they're like, where do we bring the next? We don't want them hearing conversation from the other group. And then the moment the second conversation starts, there's a knock on the door. And at this point, there's this sort of like stage play happening where they're cycling these groups and the characters are moving from group to group. And then I'm done prepping.
Welcome to Lair of Secrets. In this episode, we're talking with Daði from Mystic Arts. We're not sure how he got into Lair, but we're going to take advantage of this opportunity and find out more about him and these Mystic Arts. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's great.
You kind of exploded onto the YouTube scene, I would say.
Yeah.
It was very rapid rise. Congratulations.
It's one of those crazy things where I don't know. It was just me and AB talking about wanting to find something to do together, and we wanted to offload my endless autistic info dumping off of our friends. And we're like, well, okay, well, you write this down and film it, and then they can just watch the video.
Yeah.
Here we are.
I mean, it seemed to have worked. You're now full time. So you've worked in video games. Would you ever see yourself going back into video games?
Totally. Yeah. I still miss directing. I miss working with actors. I think one of the most fun I ever get to have at Mystic Arts is when I'm working with artists. Like they're drawing something, and I get to see. I get to invite them into the process. I have no idea what they're going to end up making, but they're going to make something, and I'm going to get to see it. And that's exactly what working with actors is like. You have a script and you have an idea, and I love doing that first take where I don't give the actors any feedback. I'm just like, what do you want us to do with this scene? And they'll do something, and then we'll work from there. I really miss that stuff. And one day I'll go back to directing for something for a limited time. But at the I love that I get to do RPG stuff for a living. It's the coolest thing.
So what was your introduction to role playing? Because you often introduce your videos with that you've been GMing for 10 or 11 years, but what was your actual introduction?
So I played my first session of Pathfinder in 2014. At that point, we had seen an actual play, but it wasn't Critical Role. They weren't out yet. It was Yogg's Quest with the Yogg's cast. They were playing some fantasy. I think they were playing Pathfinder 2, or maybe it was 4th edition. And then they did like a space one as well. And we were like, what is this? Where do we go do this? And we go ask around, and we figure out there's this thing called Dungeons and Dragons. And then a friend of ours hands us the Pathfinder rulebook and says, you don't want to play Dungeons and Dragons, you want to play this. And this is in 4th edition days, so I think I probably would have bounced off of 4th edition. And I had a lot of fun with it. We played. I started as a player. I played a wizard called Fladnag, which is just Gandalf backwards. And
very nice.
Yeah, classic first character.
Classic.
We played for a few months, and then I started DMing for him. That DM, and I think it was a coin flip down in the end. It was I was in the middle of some other project. I think I was filming some short film or something, and one of us had to go read the rule book, and whoever had to read the rule book got to DM because we both wanted to do it. So that ended up being
way better than the normal not it. Nobody wanted to DM.
Yeah.
No, we had to negotiate about it. I think there were 8 players at the table. It was insane. Yeah.
You're bringing up first characters. Classic first characters is, it fits the mold. My first character was, I started playing in 81. And so if you can guess the movie, my first character's name was Conan, the halfling thief.
Was it Krull?
I think Krull came out a little later. Yeah.
My first character's name was Battle Axe because he had a battle axe.
Nice.
My second character's name was Magic because he was a wizard. I think I was in
He wasn't a basketball player. No.
You said you would have bounced off 4th edition. If 4th edition was definitely very different in tone than previous editions. And even though they've kind of reskinned some of the fourth edition stuff, and I think the reskinning works. Like even though the mechanics work the same, they feel more in line with traditional D&D.
Yeah. There's something about like looking at the 4E rulebook that makes me feel like it's a board game. And I think I'd get a kick out of playing fourth edition today. And I played a little bit of Draw Steel and I thought it was really cool. And that's sort of that's D&D Pathfinder, a third edition Pathfinder, fourth edition Draw Steel. It's the same kind of relationship. And I played that, but when I open up today, even fourth edition rulebooks, I have to like decipher it. But there was something really appealing about just reading, even though there were huge blocks of text, but reading the Pathfinder text, I was like, this is simulating a world. And that got to me in a certain way that I don't know that 4E would have if it had been my first game.
That was how I described it initially. Was it's a great board game. That's the way it felt. I think Ken played a lot more of fourth edition.
We only played for we ran a playtest campaign for about 12 sessions, and we bounced off of it really hard. The legacy of my 4E campaign is Predator Gnomes, because I misread the rules, and 4E had at-will powers and daily powers and counter powers and all of this kind of stuff. And so I misread gnomes, which in 4E were not a character class or a character species. They were monsters. They had a video like, I'm a monster, right? And so I just thought they could attack and then cloak again, basically like the Predator, right? And so they would just cast invisibility after attacking it as an at-will action or whatever. And so I nearly killed my entire party on the streets of Sigil. And then after the session, we're like, yeah, this doesn't work that way, Ken. I'm like, you are correct. But it was a memorable encounter.
Oh, you were thinking like at will is free action.
Yeah, like, I completely misinterpreted the rules to
Yeah.
make it awesome, but really deadly. Because I mean, they were like second level characters, right? Like I nearly took them all out, but it lingers. Like they still talk about the Predator gnomes.
You played fourth edition a little bit, or you read fourth edition, played Pathfinder, playing D&D, both of the newer editions. What are some of your favorite games?
I get asked this all the time. People get really skeptical in the comments of my videos because they're like, this is some D&D psyop or whatever it is. And I genuinely, I love 5th edition. I know that there are people out there who find that baffling, but I really, really love 5th edition. I love the way it handles just most of its things. But if I had to pick something else, I just played Vagabond, Taran Pounds' game, and I had a great fun with that. It's slim, but it's got that sort of big character build optimization thing in much shorter sentences. So you might get a 5-word ability that is actually really cool if you read this other 3-word ability and this other 12-word ability, and that's how you get a character build together. But you can fit it on an A5 piece of paper.
Nice.
So I think we had a lot of fun with that. That one's very sort of pulpy. It's just a lot of smashing monsters, and the players kick ass in that game. So you can just throw all kinds of horrible things at them. That one was a lot of fun.
You were mentioning that like the character optimization and such, is that a portion of gaming that you enjoy? Because one of the things that happened with me is I kind of got a little tired of fantasy, and so I left D&D for a while and went into things like Spirit of the Century, which later became Fate, a lot of the Powered by Apocalypse type games, especially trying to remember the name of it now. Scum and Villainy, which is a sci-fi version of Blades in the Dark. My ever favorite West End Games D6 Star Wars system. And but I also really back in the day really enjoyed Champions, which is like spend 3 days to make a character and you can do all the optimization stuff. But I really enjoyed the more freeform narrative style of stuff. I'm just curious. There's no one right way to play, so I'm just curious as to where you land.
On that sort of closed to open game spectrum, I think I hew more closed than open, but I'm not far in that direction. So when I read more open systems, I often find myself not find myself having to do more of like the work coming to it. Just as a weird sort of example that comes to mind on this, there was a big hubbub about WotC removing a bunch of lore from monsters, from like Volo's Guide to Monsters over to Monsters of the Multiverse, and my sort of gut is, I'm not going to get into whether they should have adjusted whatever they did, but my gut was that removing the text made me have a hard time with it, just because I would have wanted new text to be added, but it was all cuts. So I end up going, if only there was something here instead for me to go and read and then disagree with, because I typically don't like that text. I'm too opinionated, but I would love to get the opportunity to see it and then go, no, I'm going to do it differently. But the process of it being there helps me a lot. And with Vagabond, the process of letting the players build characters got all the players reading the system. If I had decided, let's go run Shadowdark, they would have looked at what a character class can do, made a character class, and then been done. And that we did that with Dragonbane. They were all like, I understand my character sheet. Now I'm done. But with Vagabond, I was like, here, make a character. And then they talked about Vagabond exclusively for 4 weeks before we played. And They were all talking, what is your build? What is your build? Because they got to sink their teeth into it. They got to do some homework and prep. And now they're all coming like, I can't wait to bring my thing to the table. So there's some value in that kind of style of play, and I think it's specifically letting the players do prep.
I think one of the things I've been struggling with on the 5th edition front has been building out the NPCs. Like most of my antagonists are not monsters. They're actually a murderous band of halflings. And so, if you build out all of your NPCs as full-on PCs, they have just as many capabilities, and suddenly your brain explodes because you've got 5 NPCs that are just as complex as what you're up against. And so I've been trying to streamline it. I think, and 4E did this like a lot. Like, this is what you were saying, David, like they pulled forward some of these things, right? Like, if you assume your NPC is only going to survive for like a couple of rounds, then identify like the key things that NPC is going to do. Those are like the tricks or the tactics they're going to execute on, instead of having this massive sheet. But then you're like, oh man, but I want to do all this cool stuff. And it's like, it's very challenging when it's crunchy. Whereas Shadowdark, it's like, I've very much enjoyed the, hey, here's my NPC, and he's 1, 2, maybe 3 lines of text.
Yeah. There's a lot of this in Vagabond. Like I made some snap blocks the second session because it's a very simple system, and it's literally just how many hit points, what's the armor, what does he do, and that was it.
How do you handle that complexity on the 5e side? I've been watching your videos, but I haven't caught up on all of your game theory stuff. So, how do you approach that sort of? I guess it could fall into over prep, but it's also just 5e. 5e has lots of crunch.
Yeah. I make a lot of stat blocks. I love making NPCs. I like prepping. Like, so when people are like 5e does over prepping and that's why it's bad, I'm like, that's why you don't like it. I get it. I 100% get it. But I love sitting down and making stat blocks and stuff like that. That's sort of where the broadsheet comes from. I have a lot of fun with that stuff. So I don't know. Like, I think that's one of those things that's kind of baked into what the game is, 5th edition specifically. And if that's not appealing to folks, then they should play something else, frankly.
Yeah. So I have a random question. It wasn't on our list, but I started watching your Obsidian video the other day, and your nodes view was amazing. my campaigns, I have a couple of different campaigns running, but we just don't play as often, so it hasn't grown as much. But my question for you is, and I haven't finished the video yet, so you may have answered this: do you ever get lost in your own Obsidian while you're doing game prep? Because what I've been finding is, what I found as I work on my Shadowdark campaign is like, ooh, and I start going down all of these different pathways, right? Because it's like, ooh, well, I'm going to define this NPC, and then this NPC, and then this city, and then the next thing I'm like, wait a minute, I have not actually, I'm having a lot of fun, but I have not actually worked on the thing I was supposed to be working on.
Yeah. To the degree that we invented a little bit of verbiage when there were 2 of us DMing, we used to call this the difference between soft and hard prep. So like a soft and hard biscuit, right? It's your soft prep is, I know who this is, I know where they come from, and I know, your hard prep is okay, and then how what do the players do? You know, is there a bargain? Is this a negotiation? Is this a combat? Like, what is the game toy that you're playing with? So a lot of times I'll go off on some tangent, all of which is soft prep, and then I have to go stop. Can I? Is there an owlbear? Is there something that we can do? The players get to roll dice and like influence things. So 100%. I've started to try to nest articles rarely. So if I'm gonna define an NPC, I'll just define them in my session prep notes, which is just like a linear, few hundred words about what the session is, and I'll define them there. And once I've done that 3 or 4 times, then I go, okay, I guess this guy needs its own page. That's usually sort of how I try and demarcate that line. I'm like, this person isn't, important enough to get their own page.
It's so easy to pull that out and just make a new document with it with Obsidian. So
right, it's just like 4 characters to create a new hyperlink.
Yeah. And it types 2 of them automatically. Right. It's amazing.
That kind of runs into one of our other questions: is what is your normal routine for game prep?
Oh. Well, step 1, I put on music, and then I don't touch a keyboard. I'll put some tunes on, put the headset on, and I'll start walking around the apartment. I'll go for a walk outside or take a shower or something. Big part for me is I live and work and play all in the same space right now. So I need to put mental boundaries between what I'm doing, and that often just is putting a break in. So I'll put on music that I associate with a campaign. It might be pop music or whatever, but it brings me into that headspace. Then once I've done that, I'll sit down, I'll read the notes, the post-mortem from last session, so everything I wrote down during or after the game. And then I'll try and make that meet whatever I got excited about just now. So I put the music on to get excited, and then these 2 things have to meet, and that's usually where I just start writing notes linearly in terms of largely where I think they're going to go. And, then I prep the first 30 seconds real heavily. It's like writing a YouTube video. You prep the first 30 seconds real heavily, and then the next 3 or 4 minutes a bit less heavily, but quite heavy. And then the first hour is fairly detailed. And then after that, it usually just comes to a header where it's like, and then, what do the players do? We'll see. And at that point, hopefully you're warmed up.
Yeah, and if you plan too much, your players are playing a novel where they don't have any decisions. So it has to get more nebulous. It is really hard to write a module if you are used to just sitting down, prepping for a session, and letting your players go where they will. I've written several modules for Star Wars Living Campaign and some other things like that, and it is always hard to not be a railroad, still give players agency in those things. So I can understand what you're saying about going in and prepping the very first part, and you prep real hard and then kind of go real soft or loose later on.
So I did a session. I'm probably my favorite session of my most recent campaign was my last one. And they'd done a bunch of hex crawling in like this bay, and they'd got a ship and gone to all these dungeons, and they just came back to town. And I knew that they didn't want to go on another adventure just yet. They wanted to be in town for a little bit. They had made that very clear. And I was like, okay, how do I make that interesting? And I hit upon the idea of doing a sitcom episode, basically. So when they get to their home base, they come in, and then I have a group knock on the door. And that group is here to say, hey, we want to talk to you about XYZ. And the moment they start that conversation, they bring them into the house, there's another knock on the door. And they have a little map of their house, and I made them put their minis on it. And they're like, where do we bring the next group? We don't want them hearing conversation from the other group. And then the moment the second conversation starts, there's a knock on the door. And at this point, there's this sort of like stage play happening where they're cycling these groups, and the characters are moving from group to group. And then I'm done prepping. Like, I know who the 3 groups are, why they knocked, and I know that I'm going to have them knock at a funny moment. And then it's up to them. Like, do they take this person's bargain? Do they take this quest hook over here? Do they get the information out of this person? Do they negotiate with this character? That's all up to them. So I've just made the play pieces, the little toys, and I put them on the thing, and I introduce them linearly. But once they're introduced, how they're moving around the house, who's doing what when, if they put someone on hold for a little bit, that's all the players and how they negotiate so that they can win all four social encounters. That's all up to them as well.
That sounds pretty cool. And I imagine some of the people that came in may be working at cross purposes to each other, which is why they don't want them all in the same room, that sort of thing.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff like that, and it's a blast. And then the characters have different interests. So one of them is interested in conversations B and A, and another one is interested in B and C. And then they're picking rooms, and then they keep calling each other in because they're like, "Oh, actually, we need to talk to this person about it." So at that point, the players are part of the sitcom because they're the ones cycling between the rooms. Like,
Nice.
fantastic.
Very nice.
Somewhere someone is burning a cake.
Yeah. Somebody started cooking at one point. Yeah. That totally happened. Somebody started cooking, and then they started getting drunk with this other character, and then another person walks through, and I'm like, the kitchen smells weird, and they're like, oh god.
I did a number of years ago for my lunchtime campaign. Like, we play once a week for an hour over lunch, and we were doing Dragon Heist because I'm like, look, I'm just going to run a canned adventure. I'm going to get it all through Roll20, limit my prep. You know, I can stay within the lines, right? I don't have to color outside the lines all the time. And at some point during Dragon Heist, early on in the campaign, they basically get this house, right? And that's going to be their base of operations.
Yeah, Trolls
and they were cleaning up the house, and it was sort of like that downtime, just like, hey, we're not fighting anything, we're just settling into our new house. And then I don't remember if it's in the module or if I added it myself, but I had rats in the walls. They were cranium rats. And then they started dealing with the rats in the walls, because obviously you want to deal with the rats in the walls. And then somehow fire got involved, and the next thing you know, they'd burned down their house. And I think that pretty much ended the campaign. We went on to something else because they're like, oh, we burned down our house, I guess we're done. And it was just supposed to be a downtime episode.
Yeah. I still regret the way I ran that campaign, because I ran it and I was like, what is this tavern bit doing in here? And I largely skipped it. And when I looked into this adventure later, I was like, that's the show. Like, it's just the tavern show, and everything else is secondary. I can't believe I didn't see that.
It's hard to write modules.
It is.
Back to that, it like diving into like the Shadowdark side of things. A lot of those modules, the zines and like the one in the quick start guide, I've read it 2 or 3 times and start going, oh, this thing interacts with this thing over here, and this thing is, this is the story that's being told. But because it's only a couple of pages long, you can't just info dump all that story and not balloon the page size. But I really like how a lot of those are written, where if you're paying attention for those details, you can start seeing those connections and maybe reconstructing what was in like Kelsey's mind when she was writing it, as to like what is actually going on in this place.
I read Wet Dreams by Taryn for Vagabond, and I ran it. And there is small spoilers if you're going to play Wet Dreams, but if you're going to run it, this is why you should run it. There is a lighthouse that sinks into an island, and when you go in there, you find a bunch of deep ones. They're Koatoa, basically. They're running around this lighthouse, and the only thing that's in there is there's like a chair with the word captain spelled incorrectly carved on the back. And then all the way at the bottom of the adventure, it says that if the players fail to stop this character and fail to stop that other character, then the Koatoa spaceship gets launched into a geyser goes off, and the Koatoa celebrate before they launch 3 miles high and then land on the settlement. So, and that's it. And which implies that the mermaid, the villain of the adventure, has convinced these Koatoa that they're going to go to space, and that they are building this lighthouse to go to space. And then she's only doing it so that they will be in there, ? So that they like they launch the lighthouse on the town on land that she's trying to destroy. And I was halfway through running it. I'd read the adventure and gone, okay, cool. And then I was halfway through running it when I was like, oh my god, these Koatoa want to go to space.
Which is why they have the captain's chair.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
They're in the
Nice.
lighthouse, which is rocket shaped, and like,
Nice.
yeah,
That's very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
You know, I think the one thing I've learned over the years is that no published adventure will survive contact with my group.
Yeah, I don't think any published adventure survives contact with any group. You know,
No.
I think that's where some of the railroading, you know, talk comes in, is like when GMs are trying to force that. Ken and I are from an era where modules were, you know, maybe 64 pages at most.
Yeah.
Usually
big
a lot
module.
less.
Yeah.
And early 5th edition, they were, you know,
220. Yeah.
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 And
like Tomb of Annihilation is, they're long.
yeah, and that's like a whole campaign as opposed to an adventure. It took me a while to really understand, like, why are people having problems like coming up with their own modules, or why are people having problems running an adventure? Because I had never picked up one of those things before. And it's like, oh, this is how they learned. They learned that they have to do all of that in order to run a game.
Yeah, set up a villain for level 1, fight him at level 13.
Right.
You have to build a 5-level dungeon here, and then you have to have the massive wilderness exploration chapter. Like Storm King's Thunder, Chapter 3 of Storm King's Thunder lists the entire Sword Coast.
Wow.
It is crazy. I remember opening, like, okay, so you do the first thing, the giants attacking a town. You do the second thing, which is, you know, pick one of these 3 giants attacking a town. Third thing, explore the Sword Coast. Fourth thing,
wait, what?
Hang on, stop.
Yeah, I've been slowly running Storm King's Thunder for my son and his friends on our summer vacations, and I just basically stuck to the Explore the Swords Coast. Like, yeah, there's some stuff going on with giants, but like we only do this once a year, so it's just good fodder for them to basically do a simple hex crawl, and just like, here's just these simple. It's not even a hex crawl. It's like, hey, you heard this rumor over there, and then they go fight some giants, and then, you know, or some other threat, and then they move on. It's some way, I don't know, maybe when they're 30, we'll finally get to the end.
Yeah.
That's in what, you know, like 8 years or so?
Yeah, something like that. They're all in college now, so our pace of playing will slow even more.
Yeah.
That's cool, though.
It is. Playing with kids was super fun. Teaching them Dungeons and Dragons. My son took his D&D books to college with him because his friends were like, hey, does anybody know how to play D&D? And he's like, yes. And I've tried to get him to DM for years, and he would never do it. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, does anyone know how to play D&D? And he's like, yes. Does anyone have the books? Yes. And so allegedly he was going to run D&D this semester. I don't know if he actually got around to doing it because he's been pretty busy, but it's just funny. Like, he's had all this experience with it, and it's very cool playing D&D with, like, I don't know, 7 to 11-year-olds, where suddenly they're on their own side quests, right? Like, there's goblins attacking, but they're more worried about the goats, because they want to protect the goats, because the goats are going to give them milk, and they're going to turn the milk into milkshakes. And it's just, you know, this is Keep of the Borderlands. You're supposed to be going over to the Caves of Chaos. They're like, no, we're going to protect the ghosts. The goats.
That's, of those goats and fucking.
Speaking of chaos, anyway, you got in a West Marches style game. What inspired you to do that? Was it just you as a GM? Was it more than just you?
I have always had the very luxurious problem of having too many players. It gets to a point where I've got I think when we're starting this, there are about 15 people I want to be playing with, something like that. And I'd seen that Matt Colville video about it, and I'd read the Ben Robbins article about it. And I figured it's not that complicated. We'll go set this up. And we set up a Facebook group. This was several years ago. I probably wouldn't have done that today. But here in Iceland, especially, everybody's on Facebook. Like, I don't know that many normal humans on Discord or whatever. But Facebook group, and we put up like a rules document, and we put up, I think, a D&D Beyond link. We were like, we'll do campaign sharing on this. And then I drew a little map, and I said, these are the dungeons you know about. And then I had a little document for DMs going, here's how you balance dungeons. Here's when you give out loot. These were all just the rules from the DMG, like when to give out loot and etc. And finally, I said at the end of every dungeon, you have to have a clue to at least one more dungeon, ideally 2 or 3. And then you put them on the map. And that was just sort of an engine that then ran for 80 sessions. Like I DM'd,
Nice.
I don't know, 10 sessions of that, 15. Lots of people DM'd for the first time. Lots of people played for the first time in West Marches, which is crazy to me. But we just sort of invite people. And I was like, it's open invite. Just literally bring a friend to a session. As long as they follow the rules and are cool, they're allowed to show up. And yeah, we also said if you're going to book a session, you have to have a location available. Like you can't say I want to play, I don't know where. You have to say I want to play in this person's house, and then a DM will try and find time for you.
Gotcha.
And it was great fun. I used to pitch it to people as like it's the speed dating of D&D or the Tinder of D&D. Like, you're not gonna go get married and do a 2-year campaign. You're just gonna real quick. Do you like these people? Yay or nay? Yeah, there are lots of people I played with now. There are lots of people I play with now that I got introduced to then, and they came in from some other group, and they were just hooked on the game and were playing one campaign and wish they could play more sessions a week.
That's a great situation to be in.
Yeah,
as long as you can actually do, as long as the rest of your life allows you to do that.
yeah.
Would you do it again?
I was real close to, like, a couple of years ago, just before we started the YouTube channel. There's one local RPG society here in Iceland. They were having a bit of a leadership crisis, and I am a member, but I wasn't on the board or anything like that. And they had an open board meeting. They were like, "Can we get new people to run this thing? Because the people who are currently doing it don't want to do it." And I went and I tried to convince all my friends. I'm like, if we all show up with a plan, we can make it in the West Marches group and it can run. And they all told me no. They were all like, "No, we're not doing that. You are too busy." And at this point, I think I am. I think I'm too busy, because if I start another RPG, like normal campaign, I wouldn't have time for it. And so much of my day at this point is responding to messages and emails, and things slip through the cracks, and then I gotta go write videos and edit videos, write the broadsheets. So I don't think so, and that's only because of where I am at the moment. But I could totally imagine in some time that if I found myself a little bit more available, I'd set one up again, because it was a lot of fun.
I'm not trying to get you to start one again, but but if one of the nice things about it is, if you do have multiple GMs, you don't always have to be the one running.
Yeah.
So it's
Like
it's nice.
with the Dungeon Jam server, like the fact that there are multiple moderators means that it's not that much work for any individual person, except maybe
Right.
Misty. But that's about it.
I think that's all.
Broadsheet a couple of times. I don't know that we've actually talked about it. So what is the broadsheet, and how does it connect to, I don't know, your campaign, your games? Like, how does it all fit in?
So
But mostly,
I've been
what is
running. It is a digital magazine for 5th edition that every issue contains 3 chapters. One is an adventure, the second is a gazetteer of a borough, and the third is some kind of player options these days. In the first couple of issues, it was a further setting guide for the rest of my setting. And it kind of came about because I've been running in Blackguard, the setting of the broadsheet, since I started. That campaign I started playing in Pathfinder 1E, the moment I started running, I was running this setting. And it has changed with time. There have been time skips and campaigns we've played in it. So all of that stuff is in the history of my world. And people would ask me questions in the comments of my YouTube videos. They'd be like, "Can you share, your Obsidian file is massive. Can you share that with us?" And I'm like, I apologize. It is not legible. All the important stuff lives only in my head. Obsidian is just where I type the boring information. So if it's important and you need to understand it, it's not in there, and you can't access it. But if I did present it in some way, and I could do it by working with my friends, because It's me and Abi are running the YouTube channel, but I have two other friends who I worked with at Midgard Games who are working in video games. Magnus, a writer and designer, and Brimrún, a concept artist, who is now doing full-time art. If I could get the pair of them to work with me, then we could write out adventures and setting guidance, and we could get art for all these characters, and I could see my setting and show it to people in art. And we sort of hit upon that idea, and then we put it on a shelf because it was too massive. But then I finished the video game at Echoes of the End. And I'd already been doing the YouTube channel for a bit at that point, and I was standing at a crossroads looking at, am I going to do another 7-year project with Echoes of the End, doing another game with Midgard? Or am I going to try this weird YouTube thing that seems to be going pretty well right now? And it wasn't generating enough money for us to be doing it full time at that point. So we figure if that goal of like making it so that we can do this full time and getting to work with our friends and getting to share my setting, if all those three could be in one thing, there would be the Broadsheet. And it worked. It's been an incredible pleasure because we put it up on the Patreon, and which is now enough that we can do this for a living. We can pay the people who work on it, and we can keep doing issues. And people get to see the setting I run, and they get a bit of an insight into how my campaigns are.
And that's one thing that I think a lot of, at least me, but I think other people have, is one, our GM notes are indecipherable to other people.
Oh, yeah.
And two, like taking something like those notes and turning it into something professional is something that takes multiple people. Could you have produced the broadsheet by yourself? Yes. Would it have been as good quality as it is now? No.
I just need someone to read it and go, this isn't a sentence. This,
Right.
or you think this explains something, but you haven't explained that proper noun that's doing all the heavy lifting in this sentence. And like, that's what Magnus and AB do as well. Is they'll look at it and they'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Like, how did you get from A to double Z? And you're like,
yeah,
well, obviously it's just this. I'm like, obviously not, because you didn't actually write that part.
Right. So we have to go add, or we have to go cut, then we have to move and stretch. And so that was like a weird thing also, is that the broadsheet is inspired by the setting, but I'm also playing in the setting, and I didn't want the broadsheet to spoil things I had for my players. So it's set in the past. It's set 10 years before the current game.
Okay.
So there's always a little bit of sort of bending. So I'll take an adventure I've run and rewrite it as an adventure seed for someone else, as if that hasn't happened in the canon of my world. So we treat it as a little bit of an alternate universe where we can sort of dress things up for other folks to come in and for it to make sense.
How has it been received?
I
mean, you're full time, so
I'm full time. So in terms of the goals that we set ourselves, spectacularly, we're able to do this, and we have a little bit of space in our budget right now to do an extra special issue for May for Dungeon Jam. We're going to do extra art, and we're going to do a hex crawl adventure outside the city, and that's going to be a whole lot of fun. So in terms of like numbers and sales figures, like I couldn't be happier. But it's weird because I keep discovering this. Like the TTRPG space is so small that we're making this zine, and the only way I get to know how it's received is by doing these interviews, by talking to folks like yourselves and seeing, what did you think, or what do the people in the comments of those videos think. So we've been trying to do a lot of that because I need the feedback, and I only get it from fans, and I'm always skeptical of them because they're like, this is the best thing in the world, and I'm like, okay. Surely you're a little biased.
Yeah, how much of a grain of salt do you take that in?
Yeah, like hefty.
Yeah.
My joy would be to convince someone who doesn't like me that this is any good. Like somebody who goes, you know what, I don't know about this is YouTube videos, but I did read this one adventure and that one was pretty cool. If I get that comment, that would be my sort of next ambition, I think.
The broadsheet that has I think it's a fire giant with the Gatling gun, is like that was like, that's what hooked me on your setting, You know, it's
Yeah.
like, because you would describe it like you would describe it with I can't remember. I'm blanking on it now.
Flintlock Fantasy,
Yeah, Flintlock
Gaslight.
Fantasy.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, and I was like, okay, that's cool. You know, Flintlocks have been around for a while and such. And then there's a book. In fact, it's up on my shelf up there. Guardians of the Flame is a book series where they end up having guns in it, and they end up going from flintlocks to like revolvers, etc. During it.
yeah.
The setup for that one is uh, it was isekai before isekai. So like
Okay.
the college students get sucked into the world as themselves. One of them dies horribly right at the beginning, and that kind of sets the tone for, oh, this is like the really real world now. We can't just goof around in it. The fire giant with the Gatling gun is what took it from slow firing flintlocks to, oh, this is a world where so often fantasy campaigns have all this magic and all this technology and don't move in terms of like progress, whereas your setting, similar to like Eberron, I guess, is like it's moving forward, it's progressing. You know, it's they're using that technology and improving upon it, because having this technology leads to these other technologies, and that's what caught me. Plus the terror on my players' faces if I ever put a fire giant with a Gatling gun on in front of them.
Oh no, a fire giant! Check
Hilarious.
this out. That one was great because I can't claim any credit over that cover. We ran an adventure as a playtest. We playtest all of these. Not as much as I would like, but we run them for the players, and then we take notes based on that. And we change the adventure. And that one had a finale where they were fighting a fire giant, and we invited the artist over to play. She had wanted to play in the first couple, and something came up or whatever, and then she made it to this session. And I pitched her on a cover. I was like, the cover is the city of Blackguard, and then there's another city that's about to crash onto it, or it's in the middle of crashing onto it. And she said, I disagree. I think it should be the fire giant we just fought, because that was really memorable. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really pitch the setting. It's just a fire giant. That's the cover of the player's handbook. And the designer who wrote that particular adventure that I was then running, playtesting, Magnus, he says, what if he has a Gatling gun? And we're all like, it's the cover of the player's handbook, but what if Sifted had a Gatling gun?
That's awesome.
It works. It works.
Yeah.
It pulled me in.
Yeah.
So,
and then we got to do that city crash thing on one of the inside pages in black and white instead. And, I get to have that as well.
Nice.
Very cool. Very cool. So I have a random question, because it just came up in my Shadowdark campaign, and it kind of goes, I think, a little bit to the different, maybe the different generations of gamers, because the person who had this question is probably about, I don't know, 20 years younger than me, but it's the 10-foot pole. So they're adventuring, and he's playing a goblin, because in Shadowdark you can do goblins, and he's like, I have a 10-foot pole. He says, I have a 10-foot pole. Why? This is ridiculous. Like, it's so much bigger than my character, and if I'm in a dungeon, like, I'm gonna be bouncing off the walls continuously, because all the corridors are like 10 foot wide, right? So it's not like it's 15-foot wide corridors and you're just kind of walking around with your 10-foot pole. It's like, this is ridiculous. Why would anyone have a 10-foot pole? And then some of us were like, well, because you have to have a 10-foot pole, right? Why wouldn't you have a 10-foot pole? And so we debated it instead of gaming for like 30 minutes on the merits of a 10-foot pole. So my question is, essential tool or unwieldy relic of a bygone age?
Can I cheat and say the 5th edition pole of collapsing?
Yes, I think that's where they got to.
That one is the perfect Venn diagram overlap of, like, we're gonna have a 10-foot pole, but it's gonna like those police batons that like extend. It's just gonna down, and you can stick it in your pocket.
It was a very funny moment.
Yeah. In my hex crawly adventure that I'm running now, most of the time, my main sort of game, one of the players eventually got a 10-foot pole, because they do so much dungeon crawling. And I had an NPC who was like an older lad who'd done a bunch of adventuring when he was younger. I had him heckle the new players and be like, you should get a 10-foot pole. You don't know anything about dungeon crawling, you whippersnappers. So they went and got one, and they've been tapping the dungeon squares since. It's good fun.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's funny because to me, the 10-foot pole has been a relic of a bygone era when I started back in 81.
Yeah.
Because I mean, back then, it was a much smaller community and people were so, like, I learned everything from uh, the GM who first ran for me, which was a 2-week summer camp. He was a college student and I was 10. I picked up the stuff from him, and then Conan and other movies influenced things. But so, like, I didn't understand what the 10-foot pole was. It's like, why would we do this? And I would read modules, and it's like, I don't like Tomb of Horrors because it's just like killing characters all over the place. It's like, I want to play my character. And
Mhm.
I was from the beginning always very much on the role playing centered side of things and player agency without knowing it. That was my preference. And there are certainly a group of people who love the dungeon delving side of things, and are okay with character death because it's more of exploration and avoiding traps and tricks and things like that. And I've enjoyed that style of play as well. It's just that's not my preferred style of play. That's my take on it. Is it's always been a relic of a bygone age for me. So,
I think what's most fascinating about RPGs is that they are the most varied game that you can play. Like if we all go play a game of, I'm playing Hitman right now because I'm excited about the new 007 game. And if we all go play a mission in Hitman, there's variations you could do it. I killed the guy by doing this and I killed the guy by doing that and all that sort of stuff. But the mission's the same, right? Uh, and the dialogue, the lines of dialogue and when they play are the same. And if you do a board game, it's even more closed. And the thing that's so fascinating about RPGs is that where you exist in that sort of liminal space of just what it feels like to be at a table. Like if you watch a lot of actual plays, for instance, you can see all kinds of actual, and some of them are very tactical, and some of them are very theater of the mind, or they're very actory, and they're very writerly, and there are all these differences. And I love watching a lot of that stuff, but I wouldn't like to play at most of those things. And that difference is so fascinating to me, where I'm like, wow, how tiny this hobby is and how big the possibilities are. And that nobody's doing the same thing. And even you're talking about 81, a lot of people on the internet like to talk about those days of the hobbyist. Everyone did. That's from
yeah,
back when
everyone.
everyone,
Yeah.
yeah. And no, man, like this has never been a monolith, this hobby. And
Never.
it's amazing. I love this hobby just for that reason.
I've always been baffled by people who are like, you're playing it wrong. It's like,
Yeah,
no. If you're having fun, you're not playing it wrong.
right. I see this in the comments of our videos, where half the comments are some variation of "this is great" or "I have tried this and it worked," and the other half of the comments are "this can never work. You are insane. You're a bad dungeon master." And I'm like, if these two people talked, they discovered that anything is possible, and that this isn't one way or another. It's all style and preference.
Yep. Yep. I think we're getting pretty close to the end here. I mean, we've been going for an hour or so. Uh, is there anything that you would like to plug of yours or other creators?
Well, obviously, go check out the broadsheet. Go see an issue and see if it's up if it's for you. If you want some quality YouTube videos that it does not feature anybody on screen right now, I want to recommend Sam from Tabletop University. Guy started just a couple of months ago, and his channel is amazing. He's already crushed me in terms of presentation style and editing and lighting and visuals. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful channel. He's got like 5 videos up. If you were like, wow, Mystic Arts grew so fast, you're about to watch something crazy happen with Sam at Tabletop University over the next few months. That guy deserves all the love.
He's the one who also has production experience behind him
Yeah.
as well, and it shows.
It shows.
Yeah, he's done some good videos. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for being on and visiting
Thank
our
you so
lair. We're
much.
still not sure how you got in here, but you are welcome anytime.
Thank you for having me. This has been fantastic.
Yeah. And for those of you watching, feel free to come over to layerofsecrets.com. All of our links are there. Check out Daði at Mystic Arts. I hear that you are coming out with an actual play pretty soon. So you'll be able
That's
to
true.
see how he runs and see how his players play. I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. And I hope you have a good day.
Bye.